Hey everybody, John here. Welcome to the latest episode on our photography, John McTaggart Photography channel. And thank you guys so much for tuning in and for all the great comments we've been getting and all the positive feedback. It really helps and I really appreciate it. So this week is going to be a little bit different than what we've had before, or had recently anyway, I should say. Where, when I kind of relaunched this channel, even back initially, in its initial incarnation here, I wanted it to be more than just about gear reviews and stuff like that. And so we want to talk a little bit more about like what it is to be a photographer, or what it is to take a good photograph, or try to anyway. So today's a little bit more in those along those lines. I really hope you enjoy it, because it's quite honestly, photography is a lot more complex than just what camera you carry. Although it certainly does help. In a lot of cases, and depending on the camera, you kind of approach these things a little differently. But today we're going to talk about something that I think has been real valuable to me over my career, as well as just as a photographer as a whole, regardless of whether you do it professionally or whether you don't. And that is sort of what we've been told, as opposed to what is reality in terms of photography. So essentially, a lot of us have grown up or were trained, or however you kind of approach or learned anyway, through YouTube videos and reading blogs and even some books from way back, that a good photograph is composed of three elements basically. It's composition, it's exposure, and it's sort of like the moment. And I learned this as well as a lot of you have. And I have come to realize over the course of my career, that quite honestly only one aspect or one element of these things really matters, and that is the moment. It's why a lot of us pick up a camera to begin with, whether you're a professional or an amateur. You want to be able to capture those moments, whether it's at a breaking news story if you're a photojournalist, or you want to capture the perfect moment if you're a portrait photographer, that perfect look or that perfect air about the portrait, or you just want to make sure you get a great moment at your kid's birthday party or a soccer game. Either way, the moment is what really matters. And what I love about photography is it's the only medium, or one of the few artistic mediums, that really allow us to do that. Everything else is more our interpretation of the moment. When you take a picture, you are literally freezing that moment, and you are stopping time in a sense, and you're allowing yourself and others later on to kind of relive that moment, or look at it again, or be reminded of that moment. And photography is really the only thing that allows us to do that. And what strikes us mostly when we do that, or when we do have that experience of looking at a photograph that has a moment that's really captured, that really means something to us, that really strikes us as important, or kind of pulls on our heartstrings, is the fact that it's there. It's that moment that's captured. It does not have to be in perfect focus. It does not have to be exposed perfectly, and the composition does not have to be spot on. Now, if you're lucky enough to nail all three of these things in a photograph, that's fantastic. Good for you. But overall, when I and many others go out on an assignment, or have a job to do, or even for paying work or non-paying work, my biggest concern is making sure that I capture that moment. And that piece of advice was given to me by a photojournalist friend of mine that had been doing it for a very long time, who has since retired. And that's essentially, he said, just forget about the moment. Forget about the exposure, forget about the composition. First and foremost, make sure you get the moment. And I've sort of lived by that for a long time, and at times it served me very well, and at other times, sometimes it hasn't been as important. But overall, in the big scheme of things, the moment is what matters. Now, I'm not trying to tell you that it's not important to get the other two aspects correct, because it certainly is. And honestly, as photographers, the training that we put ourselves through, and the knowledge that we try to gain with every video we watch or article we read, is really more about composition and exposure, and a lot of the technical parts of it. The moment is very instinctive, and it's very like from your gut, from your heart type of thing. But in order to be a successful photographer and to capture a good image, you need to have the training to recognize a good composition or a good exposure and be prepared for that so you're ready when the moment does arrive. But a lot of us get kind of burned, and I know I did early on in my career particularly, where you overthink every image, and as a result of that you miss these moments, or you're just a hair off, and the person isn't exactly where they want or where you wanted them to be when you envisioned the photograph before, or maybe you didn't really have a chance to predict where they were, how the scene was going to play out. But either way, and a lot of it's because you're worried about a shadow or the lighting, or does this adhere to the rule of thirds or things like that. But if we kind of put that a little bit aside and worry more about taking the moment into consideration and making sure that we nail that aspect of it in our photograph, you're going to have a more impactful and more important photograph. And that's what photography should be. It should be about capturing important moments, regardless of what genre of photography that you're in, because you never get that moment again, and you have the incredible honor of freezing that moment in time for someone, yourself or somebody else. But I think a lot of us just bog ourselves down with too much going on before we hit the shutter. We're just thinking too much about things that we've read or heard, and it's part of the reason why I'm not a huge fan of portfolio critiques. I have participated in them before. I have had my stuff critiqued by some people. I have even been part of a panel of people that did do a couple of sessions of critiques. And I'm not a huge fan of them because, quite honestly, it's overthought. And the thing about being a creative or being an artist is that the rule of thumb should be that there really is no rule. There are certain elements that make a good photograph, I'm sure, but you may think that those elements are different than what I may think. I mean, of course, you don't want a photograph that's so overexposed you can't tell what it is, or so underexposed. There is a little bit of technical know-how that goes along with being a good photographer. But as a rule, and especially the way modern cameras work today, you have to work pretty hard not to get something like an exposure at least acceptable. And some of it can be rescued through post-processing of the images. In fact, a lot of it can be rescued through post-processing. And in terms of composition, there's a lot of that too that is also a little bit intuitive in people. I have a friend who shoots nothing but square and square format, even in his digital stuff. He sets his camera up to shoot square, and literally every portrait he takes is someone right in the middle. Now, to me, that's not my thing. I'm not a big fan of that. I tend to like to use a lot of negative space in my photographs if I can, and to shoot wider to tell more of a story, as opposed to him who puts somebody right in the middle and fills, I'd say, 70% of the frame with their portrait. It doesn't make his photographs bad or good. It doesn't make mine good or bad, that I don't do a lot of that. But either way, the composition is something that people, I think, overanalyze quite a bit, and get a little too critical sometimes, when the truth of the matter is the beauty of art, or being an artist, is coming up with sort of like your own definition of these things. So it's a simple concept, and I hope it's something that you guys are going to remember, and I hope it helps you a little bit as you go out to take some pictures in the upcoming days or weeks or whatever, whether it's like of a family birthday party, if COVID's not helping a lot of that kind of gathering stuff, or if it's a professional work or anything like that. I'm really hoping that you can try to remember that the moment is really all that matters. And if you can nail that moment, you are 80% of the way there. So thank you guys once again for checking out the channel. If you like what you see, please subscribe. Please hit the little bell button down at the bottom so you'll get a notification whenever a new video goes up. And hit the like button. And thank you guys once again. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time.